to have our first group walk on the Labyrinths and have a chat about it. So what's it been, 9-10 months since we started this one? Yeah, a lot of anticipation, a lot of hoping that grass would grow, and all of that, and a lot of hard work from very, very many people. So let's get on our way, shall we? So these are very ancient labyrinths, but we'll talk about it for the 21st century. So first bit we can move fairly quickly through because it's just a bit of a look at some of the history and about walking the labyrinth. And there are no boundaries on it. And the idea about creating hope is when we're not held, we're not bound by stuff. And modern people have, and I'll be talking about this with at St. Patrick's later in October in the Rocks, there are at least 15 biases that are born into our society that sort of control us if we're not aware of them. And so labyrinths are very much about becoming aware. That's where I worked in Indiana. That's the Basilica of Mary Immaculate. That's my first car. That's my office. And I was in charge of that from the Basilica around. Just beyond here, there's our dining room, which could seat 700. And it was the dining room for St. Mary of the Woods College, which comes down around here. And over that side, there were 3 convents of the sisters, with 250 of them. And I put the labyrinth in over the other side of this convent. So going around there, 1,240 acres, 7 lakes. It was quite a nice property. So it was called St. Mary of the Woods. And I'm going to have to go over the other side, I think, because I can't see the screen. Unless we can do this without messing about too much. There we go. That helps me. So when we talk about sacred space, this is an ancient icon from Russia, a fellow called Rublev, and it's Old Testament Trinity, where you have the 3 people coming to Moses and his wife Sarai, and they realize somehow they're special. And so this idea of the Trinity, of one unity, with the faces all turning to each other and the hands all turning the other way to each other, and then there's a chalice in the middle which has a figure of a lamb. Then down below you have the only point about being here is that I am likely to trip over all sorts of things. For those who haven't been with me before, you'll see that they found animal glue on that. It was done in 1410, so it's 600 years old. Animal glue, and they think there was a mirror there. It said that the other person who belongs in this group is you, the person who's reflected there. Okay, you belong within this whole idea. And I'll quickly say something about it. Some of you have been with me before, have heard this, but my idea of what we call God, the entity, is being itself, whatever it was that set everything going, this whole universe, full of potential. And we're beings. We're part of that, not separate. There's not a God out there. So when Jesus said, "You're sons and daughters of God," then he meant it. We're beings, and we have the essence of God. And that word essence comes from the Latin esse, which means to be. We are of the being. So we're that close. And this sort of icon is trying to get at it and say they're that close. And so when we have a space where we can become aware of these things, such as a labyrinth, then we need to know that And that's the name of the icon, the original name, that we belong there. And so this is Chartres Cathedral, where the design we have down here, the Chartres Labyrinth, is built into the church. So some people say, well, it's not very Christian, it's not Catholic, it's not. Well, yes, we've had labyrinths they've found built into or drawings on rock caves and walls 40,000 years ago. So, yeah, that's not Catholic or Christian. And they've been all around the world. So it seems as if it's human. They've found them in ground for at least 4,000 years. Long, long time. So, yes, they belong to everybody, and they're not about any specific religion. They're about being human. What can we do to help us come to the fullness of our humanity, to be the best people we have, using our gifts and our passions to develop to the full? And what a labyrinth does is helps to open that out. Because, as I said, biases and other things like this, we tend to be held in and not allowed to think outside the box. And so here we have an outside the box, but it's a safe place. So this is looking at the design of the church, and you can see down as you come in, the labyrinth is actually built into the floor. Okay. So that's it looking from above. It's an 11 circuit labyrinth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 circuits. There's one path, and we'll talk about that a bit later. I'll show you in a clearer diagram. It's interesting that this was built by a whole bunch of men into this cathedral, but there's a lot of feminine symbolism in there. The number of stones in the path from the beginning, as you follow it around, is the same as in 9 months, the time it takes for a baby to be born. Accident? The lunettes, each quadrant, these things that stick out there are 30 of them. Female cycle built into the labyrinth by this bunch of men. They probably didn't know what they were doing. So it is not just for the guys. This is very much opening out. And when men walk this labyrinth, it's very good for them too, because they probably don't know it, but they're being open to feminine energy, which we need to balance. So women need a touch of masculine energy, and men certainly need a touch of feminine energy. Otherwise, when they don't, you can see all these things happening around the world at the moment with men being very, very cruel, very violent, very belligerent, very uncaring. And they need to have something to balance that tendency to violence and to predation. That's the labyrinth I put in St Mary of the Woods. This is the second convent here. This other one with here, you can see, and over the top from the basilica. The founder of that was made a saint in 2008. It was one of the jobs I had when I went there for her beatification, to make a film about her. Never made a film before, but they said, "Oh, that's part of your job." So we did it. They've got little bushes on this one. There shouldn't be anything on a labyrinth. The sisters insisted. Now, if you see from the shapes, one of the reasons I didn't want these things in here, because this shape here, that's the thing that gives its name to the labyrinth. Because if you imagine a handle coming in here, and you've got this double-headed axe, with that being the blade. And so in Crete, in the Mediterranean Sea, that thing was called a labyr, Labyr. So it's got nothing to do with axing people. It's just that this diagram looks like an axe, and that's where it gets its name. freedom is very, very important in the labyrinth. There's no point in going on there thinking, I've got to do this, I've got to walk this pace, I've got to finish at a certain time. If you're going to do that, don't bother. It will have no effect at all. So I want to sing like the birds sing, not worrying about who hears or what they think. Dance as if there's nobody watching. Okay. Poetry is very good because it has less coefficient of friction than ordinary language, prose. And the poetry is ideas just allow our mind to open. We don't have to think the way the poet thinks. We don't have to think about any way he thinks. We just want to see how this hits us and what place it takes us to. So one I like very much for this, just to get in the mood, is I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and the blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. The physical and the spiritual are one. John 10, the Father and I are one. We should not separate ourselves out. A spiritual man in Ireland, Father Tom Hamill, who taught me at Mount Oliver Institute there, I was there for a year, he said, the gulf between the sacred and the mundane is a false one. And that's what I'm saying there. So which is natural, then infinite, spiritual and physical, which is positive. And I who have died am alive again today. And you can think about that. What shuts me down? What holds me, stops me growing? Who tells me I can't think what I want to think, can't do what I need to do? There might be somebody, a mentor, who says, no, that's not wise, perhaps. You may need to think of it another way. But they don't shut me down. They encourage me in a more growing way. So how am I alive today? How can I walk a labyrinth and find life? More life than I've had. Can be open to it. And this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and love and wings and the gay great happening, illimitably earth. And here we come into it. How should a tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the know of all nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are open. And when Jesus was talking about his mission statement, the only thing he added to the prophet Isaiah was, I have come to restore sight to the blind. The eyes of my eyes are opened. So that kind of poem is something you can take on. I quite often use that first part just to get myself in the mood. Then I may not think of anything else, and that's fine. So this is something which we need to understand. The labyrinth is not a maze. There's a maze. Those walls are about 2 meters high. You can't see over them. There are dead ends. It's a game. It's a task to find the center. And once you've found the center, well, you've done it. That's it. It's all over. There's one in England where they actually have a tunnel out underneath. So you get to the center and say, yeah, I've done it. And then you go into the tunnel and walk out and have a cup of coffee. But the labyrinth is not like that at all. There are no walls. If you want to walk off, you can. So what are the parts? This, as I said, is the 11th Circuit chart labyrinth. The lunations, which we don't have on ours because we need more bricks, and there's about as much work in putting the lunations as is doing the whole of the rest. But I'll talk about what they are for. And then you've got the rosettes in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, an old-fashioned rose. We've got the rose people next door, but the modern rose will have 5 petals. The old-fashioned ones have 6. And you can do things such as standing in the petals and maybe getting in touch with just the air, the water, the earth, feeling yourself on the where I am, just being. You might get in touch with the insects and the crabs and the the things buzzing around. You might feel one with the animals, the fish and the birds and the mammals, or put the mammals in here, or just human beings or something. People from other countries, other places, other religions, just feel that oneness. Then being itself, oneness itself. Jesus' name for God was Allah in his language Aramaic, which is sacred unity. The idea of being one, not pushing each other apart. The word diabolos in Greek is used in the Bible, and that is the devil, diabolical. It means to separate, to push apart. Symbolos or sacrament means to make one. Sacred unity, bringing us all together. Now, that doesn't mean uniformity. We have to keep our individual selves, but it does mean unity. Not everybody marching in lockstep, wearing the same uniform. We've had a parade in China recently, and they're all doing that. That's not what's wanted. To allow people to be themselves, but one. The entrance and the exit are the same. You go on path and you come out the same path. Down at our labyrinths, you'll see there's some bricks there, a little ledge, a step, and that tells you where to start. Just a couple of bricks wide, but different from all the other paths, which are single bricks. Any questions on that? How are we doing? Too fast? No? Okay. Carry on regardless, says he.
There's only one point there. You've got to walk in, walk out the same way.
Yes. There is one path. Yeah, and I'll talk about passing and that kind of thing eventually. Okay, this is the south facade, the rose window in the cathedral shaft. What we tend to do is to look at ourselves from the inside out. And we can often quite say, well, I'm a mess. Particularly as we get older and we have things that go wrong and we find stuff that doesn't work and we maybe get into some bad habits and we can say, well, I'm a mess. But if you look at a tapestry, beautiful. You go around behind, it's a mess. You can have a beautiful sound system and big TV screen and speakers and everything else. Go around behind, cords and tangles and things and all sorts of, it's a mess. So we need to look at ourselves from the outside and realize that we are actually quite beautiful. I don't mean physically. I mean we have that beauty, and we can have the goodness, and we can have the truth. It's all available to us. And we mustn't let what's happening around us take us away from that. Once you have goodness, beauty, and truth, you have God. So you need to look at it from the other side. Quite a difference, huh? Let your light shine. The great psychologist, Carl Jung, had something to say about it. So the window is a wheel, a universal sacred symbol of heaven and earth, the ever-turning wheel of life, which is a very, very Hindu idea. Except when you go off to beyond this life, they say you all merge into one thing. No, we keep our individuality. There's a big difference between that. But the ever-turning wheel of life, people from thousands of years ago have had these ideas, and there's a lot of truth in them. So Carl Jung, the very famous psychologist, he described this window as an expression of humankind's sense of the eternal in the universe, in the practical, in the physical, which is what we've been saying. And so our labyrinth is a circle. So there's a sense there of that presence, of bringing both together. And one way of looking at it is what the Irish call a thin place. And that photo I took in Achill Island, the water behind is Clew Bay, C-L-E-W, and the mountain behind that is Croagh Patrick, which is the sacred mountain of St. Patrick. Climbed it twice. There's a rock, a whole lot of rocks going up towards the top, and people go up at risking breaking their ankles, and some go up it on their knees. Hard work. Why they do that, I'm not quite sure, but it's all sort of devotion of sacred places. First time I went up that slide, and I thought, this is quite dangerous. So the second time I looked at the side and saw where the sheep went, the sheep path. So I just nicked up the sheep path, and I was sitting there waiting when everybody else came up. I don't know whether that was right or wrong, but so this is something which is quite true. People of scholars, peasants, all sorts of people have been fascinated and drawn to places where they feel this connection between the God and themselves, realize that we are one. And this Achill Island is a place. It has a history with legends and stories that describe adventures and encounters where the worlds met and time seemed to stand still. And they realized, oh, there's something more than just ordinary going to work and coming home again and waiting for Saturday so I can drink beer and watch football. There's something more to life than that, something bigger, something better that's available to me. And it's just a place where you can do that. So as I said, there's Achill Island in the west of Ireland itself in County Mayo. So it's a place of many tragedies. There was famine in the 1850s, and it was hit very hard over in the west. The potato crops failed for years in a row. There were 8 million people in Ireland before the famine. After it, there were 2 million. Death, transportation out for crimes, mainly stealing bread because they needed to live. Man would steal a loaf of bread for feed his kids and be sent off to Australia for 7 years as a convict. St. Dyfna, the patron saint of the mentally ill, lived here. And Edgar Allan Poe, the American writer of sort of horror stories, short stories mainly, he said that when we dream, when somebody is out of control, that's when we tend to let the light in. There's a crack in everything. What's that song of? Yeah. The birds that sing in break of day. I've heard them say, there is a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. So we needn't worry about ourselves if we don't think we're perfect. We're only asked to be perfect as the Heavenly Father is perfect, and the Heavenly Father is only perfect in being perfect in love, a perfect lover, who is open, who is vulnerable, who is moved by you. And we can never imagine God being moved by us. And yet, if there's a perfect lover, it has to be responsive. And so, but we keep pushing off and say, oh, that can't be true, that can't be true. What if it is true, eh? Grace O'Malley, Gronyan Niwalia was her Irish name, Gronyan Niwalia. She was a pirate queen. She took on Queen Elizabeth I, who was a formidable lady, and won. So she was quite famous. So this is a place which is a marvelous sort of a history. There's modern places too. I went to this one in Arizona, Sedona, the Red Hills. You've been there? Yeah. So you just get a feel sometimes that there's something special there. It's been heavily commercialized around the town, and that always takes away. I know at Lourdes, what they've done is they've kept all the people with plastic saints and all the junk over the river outside. They can't come on to the precinct, and that was very wise. Okay, so that's enough about that. So the other thing that I've been sort of approaching is that it's an archetypal pattern. And the archetype is a word for an original sort of a pattern which a lot of us follow, where, as I say here, all things of the same type or representations or copies. So we have that within ourselves. Now, one way of looking at this is to say, right, and the psychologist James Hillman, an American, whom I like very much in his ideas, said, just imagine, and this is imaginal, that your personality, the you show to the world, has various persons who will pop out now and again, depending on the circumstances. And if you don't like them and shut them down, they can do you some harm because they're always trying to get out. But if you say, oh, I'm angry. Anger, where did you come from? What's making me angry? What's beneath that? Oh, I'm frustrated. Okay, frustration, pop your head up and now tell me what's going on. What's the real reason for this? What can I do about it? Do I need to fix myself rather than the other person? I'm jealous. What's made me jealous? Oh, I'm insecure. Why am I insecure? So when we talk to these personalities, it's an imagination, but it's something you can do in your imagination. That's what they're for. Then you bring them to the surface. Now, a labyrinth is a bringing to the surface place. You allow these things that are there, instead of stepping on their heads, you just allow them to come up and see what's going on. And that helps you to grow. You are in control of it. It's not controlling you. So these archetypes are things that are patterns which occur in pretty much all of us. But our persons are different. My personality, the persons of my personality are different from yours. Some will be similar, but there'll be others which are not similar. And that's we need to pay attention to. So, Father Tom Hamill again, who was a mystic, he was in charge of Mount Oliver Institute, and I was there for a year. The heart sees the truth that the head misses. We must open our imaginations. Jesus talked about when he responded to people, he responded to the kardia. That's a word used 200 times in the Bible. And the kardia means the heart and the head and the gut, where we feel things. Where we say, oh, where we get very excited and start to get sick, and and that's because we're stirring up the gut, the heart, the head, the whole person. And then he responded to them with this love, this strong love. The Latin calls it compassion, cum passio. I suffer with, I stand with, I'm together with. The Polish idea was very good. They in solidarity with. But the Greek in the Bible is splagnizomai, which is a stronger again. It says the love of a mother for a newborn child. This is how Jesus responded to people. He paid attention to the whole person, and then he gave himself in love to them to see what he could do for them. Still the same person, still doing the same thing for us if we let him. So, some examples here. If you have the Lord of the Rings, Frodo is the archetypal hero. Not a big, strong, sword-wielding person, but the idea is to go down and to be simple and poor, but true, and good. And there's a beauty in him which is able to be seen. But it's not the I am the best in the world sort of thing. People like that tended to get it wrong. And the story, of course, is who's the guy who tries to take the ring from him. There. But anyway, another one is Gandalf. He's the archetypal wisdom figure. So where's wisdom in me? Where is the hero in me? Not the celebrity. Celebrities, forget them. It's all made up.
Dawn?
No. Yeah. The son of the guy in the kingdom who wouldn't let go. Boromir. So archetypes are close to instincts, and that long before any consciousness develops, it is the impersonal and inherited traits of human beings that present and motivate human behavior. So you've got a small child and you start to see the instincts, you start to see the behaviors, you start to see what's going on. I know with one of my grandnieces in a pram, I went with the mother to the supermarket and I was the pram pusher and I had to keep it moving. If it stopped and it was the same things you could see on the shelves, she'd cry. If I kept it moving, she wouldn't. So little indications like that. So the archetypes will come out of that, and it's interesting, to allow them to see what's there, and to do it in a safe place. And so this is true also. What I've got there, even when we develop consciousness, because there are modes of consciousness. And I won't go into that now because it's a full 3-hour presentation, which I've done. So some of the archetypes that, since I'm talking about them, and you might be thinking, what on earth is this about? Still, the shadow is an archetype. Wildness and wilderness, not savagery, but wildness. There's a difference, isn't there? Being wild, you don't have to be savage. This chap who shot the policeman is pretty savage. He thinks he's wild, but he's done something quite wrong. The shadow is quite often in ourselves, our shadow, and we deny it. Oh, that's not me. This person is. We project onto others. They're doing that, not realizing that what we're recognizing is us, and then putting it out. What we call scapegoating. That's the next talk I do, next week or something. The circle is an archetype, wholeness and integration. That integer is one, and integer is the number one. So integration means making one, which I talked about before. So wholeness, journey, not arriving, but the experience of going. The gut, we talked about that in the cardia, the inbreaking of archetypal persons when they actually start to affect us, and we need to say, what's going on within me? What's happening? Why am I angry? Why am I resentful? Even why am I joyful? Why do I want to dance and sing? What's going on? And that can be good information. Doesn't stop you doing it. It's a place to deal with one's stuff, and the labyrinth is that. So there are some of the archetypes. Don't worry about the inner things, but you can look at those around the side. The creator, the innocent, the sage, the wise person, the explorer. Are you a Dora the Explorer type? You like to do that? The outlaw, the magician, the trickster, magician or trickster, the hero, the lover, the jester, every man, every woman, the caregiver, the ruler. All of those are archetypes that can pop up in us. And so the labyrinths can work with that. Some of the most basic needs and desires in us can help us be aware. And when we're alert and aware, that is a sign of growing into fullness of adulthood, into the second half of life. This lady, Clara Pinkola Estes, wrote that book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And she tells us about the wild woman. And the wild woman is, she says, the wise and ageless presence in the female psyche, soul. And the soul within us is the place where God dwells. And it's not a place, it's a way in which God is within us and around us. We call that aspect the Holy Spirit in Christian terms. Gives women their creativity, their energy, their power. So, For 4 millennia, 4,000 years, we've had the patriarchy, the men ruling the place. And they've repressed the wild woman. They've been afraid of her. An archetype which they haven't allowed out into their consciousness. The wild woman's there and she gets pushed down. Male-orientated value system, which will trivialize women's emotions. Oh, it's only an emotion. It's only a feeling. You've got to get real. Well, they're real. So she uses old stories and new studies to say, well, the wild woman is actually healthy, passionate, and wise. And she uses strong images, such as this one. And she writes, within every woman there lives a powerful force filled with good instincts, passionate creativity, and ageless knowing. She is the wild woman who represents the instinctual nature of women, but she is an endangered species. For though the gifts of wildish nature belong to us, meaning women, she's writing, at birth, society's attempt to civilize us into rigid roles has muffled the deep, life-giving messages of our own souls. They need to be released. Labyrinths help. And that's the book she wrote. And okay, journeying on. This is part of the labyrinth. Of course, you're walking a trail in and out, so it's a journey. So where does that come into what we tend to do or need to do? Basic idea of journeying. We human beings, we go everywhere, even out into space, spending a lot of money and time and effort, even though it's probably fairly meaningless. Try to get to Mars where you can't live. But we do it. The image of the quest, the myths of the Odyssey, the search for the Holy Grail, the many stories of wandering and exodus, the people of God in the Hebrew Bible, the Exodus story. That's very, very typical of them. Carl Jung, I talked about, he said that the reality, the soul reality is journeying on. You can't stand still. The way of Jesus asked his disciples to follow a man who had nowhere to lay his head. Will you come with me? Will you be with me? That's all he asked them. He didn't ask them to worship him. Bad word, worship. Pushes people away. You've got this God up there on a big platform looking, and then you've got us down with our heads on the ground kneeling and all of that. And Jesus never asked us to do that. He said, will you come and be with me? There's that word being again. He didn't big note himself. So Moses and the children of Israel, I've mentioned that. The Lord of the Rings, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Pilgrim's Progress, all of these books you may be familiar with. You mightn't be familiar with the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant Leper, Stephen Donaldson, 6 books. The first 3 are better than the last 3, but they're all about journeys, moving from this way of being, this universe, to another. And being free. He's a leper here, but over there he's not. So he has to deal with a whole lot of stuff that has been going on in him. And in that safe environment, he's able to, well, it's not all that safe, but a different environment. So a fine example is the pilgrim way from France to James Compostela in Spain, the Camino Real, Royal Way, which a lot of people walk. And there are a couple of similar kinds of things, much shorter, in Australia, West Australia, and around Penola and Victoria. I was on that road heading out to the Mesa country in America. But the really significant journey we have to make is the interior journey. Go into ourselves, find out who we are. A very, very fine man, Dag Hammarskjöld, Norwegian, I think. UN Secretary General, the second UN Secretary General, said the longest journey is the journey inward. It'll be costly. And the Celtic tradition never allows us to forget just how costly, the Irish tradition. It says if you're going to actually decide to be a certain kind of people, for instance, you're going to follow the way of Jesus of Nazareth, you can't just say, oh, Lord, Lord, and that'll do it. You've got to commit. You have to commit, and you have to go through life's ups and downs in order to strengthen yourself, to be strong enough to be able to reach the end of the journey. And it tests us. It's surprising and risky. It doesn't necessarily have an end and a goal in view, so that you could say, right, this is what I need to do, and then I'm going there. Story told of Australian Army SAS group, 4 men, used to going through jungles, very, very, very easy way to deal with. I'm not saying that right. They're very competent in moving through difficult circumstances with a goal in view. And so they had a race between 4 Aboriginals and this group to say, well, see who can get to this, in the Northern Territory, to see who can get to this destiny first. And the soldiers went, and they went through swamps, and they went through. One of them had to be medevaced out when he damaged his leg. The Aboriginals, they said to themselves, well, now let's go. We'll do this for them. And one of them said, well, there's a lake so-and-so down the south. It's the water lily roots are just coming in, and there are yabbies there. Oh, let's go. And so they went down there and harvested those. Now, we need to go on this journey further. So, such and such a place says, the fruit is starting to come into ripeness. Let's go there. In the end, they didn't turn up. They didn't turn up. There's a whole different way of doing things. So the Labyrinth allows us to do this, and this journey doesn't necessarily have to have an end. It's the experience which is important. I keep saying to people, and those are regulars are probably bored with me saying John of the Cross is saying the experience, the language of God is the experience God writes into our lives. We need to pay attention. I don't think I brought my copy of the St. Ignatius Examine of Consciousness that you can do every day and say, what went on? How did I feel? How did I react? Where did that come from? What would I like to do tomorrow? It's a great way of using your experience and growing from it. And the Labyrinths is a concentrated way of doing that kind of thing too. See, even Jesus encountered temptation, hardship, and if we choose to follow his way of being, loving, looking at that kadir of people, responding with that wonderful love, if we want to do that, we shouldn't expect anything else, because this world does not understand that and tends to regard you as weak or crazy or something else, rather than respond. Just imagine if everybody lived that way, or a significant number, a critical mass. Would we have wars, famines, starvation, domestic violence? It would go. There it is. It's a model for us, and we don't use it. So, the word in Latin is peregrinatio. The Irish use that too. It's probably fairly untranslatable. But this story about 3 Irishmen who, in the 9th century, the 800s, they set adrift over the Irish Sea and down towards the Atlantic Ocean in coracles without oars. Now, the coracle is just a little reed saucer which is used to be poled or paddled across a stream, maybe as wide as this room, maybe a little bit more, maybe the length of the room, across this river. And they're out in the ocean there without oars. So didn't even have that one. And so they finally got to Cornwall, over in England, over in the south. And they were taken to Alf, King Alfred. And he said, oh, you Irishmen. He says, what on earth were you doing? And their answer was, we stole away because we wanted, for the love of God, to be on pilgrimage. We cared not where. That's exactly it. Peregrinatio. The experience, the journey, what happened to them, paying attention to it, how they reacted to it. This is the way we grow. It's the soil and the compost and the water and the sunlight for us. Aboriginal walkabout, which I just described in that story before, the same kind of thing. One of the closest ways of getting to it. So there's a question. Another few minutes, we'll have a break. Now, Karl Rahner was probably, I think, the best theologian of the last century, certainly up there in the best 2 or 3, German chappie, a Jesuit priest. And he says that we all should be mystics. But what I'm talking about might seem to be, something for holy people. But the holy people of God are us. And he says that it's what I've written here is an ordinary occurrence. And the fact that this is normal, he understands us as people who are ultimately connected to God, that we humans and the God are one. And so he said, we all should be mystics, not characters carrying lilies or looking up to the sky, where God isn't, by the way. He said that anybody who's had an experience of God and knows it is a mystic. Anybody who's felt something really special, it's truth or beauty or goodness. And it might be something tiny. We're mystic. We're all called to be it because we are beings, we are one. So why not experience that? Don't stop ourselves. And the labyrinth is a place where you can allow yourself to experience. And he says, we've all experienced it directly. We only need to recognize the encounter. And labyrinths are great for doing that. With the transcendent, it's a big word for God. Sturt Desert P. I was in an army patrol, cadet patrol in the Flinders Ranges. I came around steep valleys. We had very hot days once the sun got down to the bottom of the valleys where we were. We're on search and rescue mission, and I came around the corner of the, just a little ridge on one of these steep hills, and there was this desert peas there, just one lot. And I remember that I was 15 years old as an experience of God, where you just go, and you see the beauty, and you realize that this is what we've been given, part of what we've been given. That's enough. Again, my friend Tom Hamill says, the places where people break bread together or share jokes over a work desk are as sacred as any altar. The experiences of our life are so vital. We pay attention to them. What does it open us up to? Right. So, the next part, which is just starting now, the second part, is just looking at actually walking the labyrinth. What is it? What do we do? How are some of the ways? There are no rules, but I can show you some of the things that might help you. Okay, so why don't we take a break? It's 10:25 past